may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Alright guys, usually I don't make these must-start videos until we get to Friday or Saturday, but I got a ton of requests on Patreon that I went down and started making these now just because we have those extra matchups on Thursday. I want to make sure that everyone is prepared. But as always, guys, y'all are going to have to monitor injury situations going into the game. Some of these players are currently questionable. There are also some other questionable players throughout their offenses. So keep in mind that. Keep in mind that we're going to have to continue to do that work. That's why I'll be live streaming every single night this week, except on Thursday night, so I can answer as many of your questions as possible. But before we get into the video, guys, please go down there, drop that like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. Really helps us out. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Let's jump into it, and let's start it off with a wide receiver that plays on Thursday. So you're going to know whether or not this call is solid or not, depending on whenever you're watching this video. But Will Fuller, guys, with Will Fuller, he's going up against the Detroit Lions, which is a matchup that, yes, it's not something that jumps off the page like a Seattle Seahawks, but it's still more than ideal with the Detroit Lions just having a very bad defense at every single level. And what I also really like about this Will Fuller play is we've seen multiple injuries now in the Houston Texans wide receiver room. I believe we have injuries to Randall Cobb. We have injuries to Kenny Stills. So right now we have Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, and Kiki QT, who are pretty much going to be the only guys on this team that can see targets. Will Fuller was already getting consistently over 20% of his team's targets, sometime closer to that 30% range, depending on the week. He is the alpha in the offense. He has an extremely high level of career efficiency. So when we're going to be expecting him to increase his target share slightly in a matchup that's going to be a complete smash, I'm actually going to be projecting Will Fuller to be a high-end wide receiver 2 this week, if not a low-end wide receiver 1. I know that does not sound extremely crazy or anything, but just go look at the landscape of the wide receiver position for fantasy football. There are so many quality options that if you can jam in a low-end wide receiver 1 at your wide receiver 2 spot, really it's going to give you a massive edge over your opponent. I think that's exactly what we are looking at with Will Fuller. There are very few wide receivers I would rather have in my starting lineup based on the ceiling that he provides for us with his deep play ability. Also, he's going to have a high floor because of his target share in the offense. Really, there's no chance that this Houston Texans Deshaun Watson-led offense flames out against the Detroit Lions. So I think we're really seeing an extremely safe play with Will Fuller, also a play that has a ton of upside. All right, so now let's get to our next wide receiver, someone that's been frustrating so far in 2020, DeVante Parker. Guys, with DeVante Parker, this was someone that I was so excited about 2 weeks ago. Whenever we saw the Preston Williams injury, we knew that Preston Williams went down in 2019 with his torn ACL. And after that happened, DeVante Parker was actually the wide receiver 2 overall. I mean, across all of fantasy football in PPR leagues in 2019, truly a smash play that was a league winner. We did not think that we were going to see that same level of production with no Preston Williams in this offense in 2020, but we thought we were going to be able to rely on mid wide receiver 2 production with DeVante Parker, and that did not come until week 11 when we thought it was going to come in week 10. Now I think we can safely say that he's going to have that usage on his offense, seeing almost double-digit targets this past week, coming down with a touchdown. We also know that he is a threat to take a big play any single down. Really, DeVante Parker throughout his entire NFL career has showed great big play ability. Not much outside of that where the consistency is less than desired. But with DeVante Parker, another wide receiver that has a ton of upside, and we all know that the Miami Dolphins should be able to move the ball against the New York Jets. All right, now let's get to a wide receiver that was honestly a little bit disappointing this past week in Justin Jefferson. So guys, y'all know I have been claiming that Justin Jefferson is the wide receiver 1 for the Minnesota Vikings offense. I think that if we look at what Justin Jefferson has been able to accomplish in 2020, we compare it to wide receivers across time. We compare it to rookie wide receivers throughout the history of the NFL. You could make the argument that Justin Jefferson is having the best rookie wide receiver of all time. I mean, unreal the type of efficiency that he has. If you're looking at raw volume in terms of yards per game, then we're going to have to give that to an Odell Beckham Jr. But if you're looking at yards per target, if you're looking at yards per route run, really nobody is matching what Justin Jefferson has been able to do on his age 21 season. The one problem so far is we are just seeing Kirk Cousins in this offense only zoom in on Adam Thielen over and over and over again in the red zone. And I'll say, I think that this is going to be a trend that we are expecting to continue going into week 12. Obviously, this is going to be something that's continuing throughout the entire season. But we know that one thing with touchdowns are they are extremely volatile. What I'm actually going to prefer is I'm going to prefer the wide receiver that is making big plays, the wide receiver that is consistently winning at every level of the football field. Because with Adam Thielen, if you take the touchdowns out of the equation, which is the most volatile thing in fantasy football, I really think that Justin Jefferson is a better option. And going up against the Carolina Panthers, I know a lot of people are going to be nervous. This is a Panthers defense that just completely shut down the Detroit Lions offense, made it look like a college football team. I am personally not too worried. The Panthers have had a stronger pass defense than a rush defense so far in 2020. So it's definitely something to take into consideration. But at the end of the day, we are looking at Justin Jefferson truly being an elite talent for this Minnesota Vikings offense. I think there's going to be nothing that can happen for us to take Justin Jefferson out of our starting lineups. Even only seeing 5 targets this past week, Justin Jefferson was still able to go out there and put up almost 20 fantasy points. I mean, Justin Jefferson can pretty much do it all. I want to get him in my starting lineup despite the matchup. All right, so now our next wide receiver going up against a tough team on paper, but I think is actually going to be able to really excel. Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin's coming off of a 10-target game against the Los Angeles Rams. And y'all know I've been saying that I think Chris Godwin is the wide receiver 1 over Antonio Brown and Mike Evans for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver room. Here, I'll definitely say that Godwin is a player. If you don't remember, in 2019, we completely whiffed on Chris Godwin. I called him the most overvalued player in fantasy football. Then he came out and he was the definition of a league winner. Oh, it was one of the most embarrassing things that I've ever said. And the Kansas City Chiefs, who he's going up against this week, actually have a decent pass defense where really we've seen the Chiefs just look at their opponents and say, hey man, y'all can run against us all y'all want. We are going to limit the opposing team's passing offense, just knowing that Patrick Mahomes is going to be able to score at will. And if teams aren't able to catch up with us through the air, they have no shot at winning. So I know a lot of fantasy analysts are going to be coming out here and talking about potentially a Ronald Jones or a Leonard Fournette in this game against the Kansas City Chiefs, because generally the Chiefs want to allow that run funnel to avoid the other team throwing through the air. I just think based on the fact that the Chiefs are going to be putting up points, we are going to see this be a very similar game to what we got with Los Angeles versus Tampa Bay. I think that this game turns into a shootout. I think that all the wide receivers are in play for both offenses, but specifically with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think that Chris Godwin is going to be the best option that we're going to look at. I would much prefer having him in over a guy like Mike Evans. Mike Evans has been extremely reliant on touchdowns so far in 2020. The target share has not been consistent game to game. So here, I think that Chris Godwin is the clear play. All right, so now let's jump down a couple tiers. Let's talk about someone that if you are getting desperate, if you have suffered some injuries and you just need someone to put in your flex, here's the answer. Jalen Reagor. Guys, y'all know I actually really like Jalen Reagor this season. I consistently called him the wide receiver 1 in Philadelphia. That's why we knew to sell Travis Fulgham before Jalen Reagor came back to this offense. But everything here is about the matchup. I mean, if Carson Wentz cannot get it right in this game against the Seattle Seahawks. There is no way he maintains that starting role for the Philadelphia Eagles. It just is such a smash spot where we are going to be able to expect Jalen Reagor to go out there and really thrive because the Seahawks and Russell Wilson are going to put up points on the board. And because of that, we know that Carson Wentz and this Philadelphia Eagles offense are going to be forced to air the ball out. They're going to do that with their number one wide receiver in Jalen Reagor. What is actually decent with the Seattle Seahawks defense is the safety play as well as the linebackers. And what that is actually going to do is that's going to shut down the opposing offense's tight end position where they're really not able to get anything going over the middle. How you attack the Seattle Seahawks secondary is you do it on the outside. Jalen Reagor so far has showed that he's 100% back from that thumb injury. He had the shoulder injury also earlier on this season during the preseason, what was supposed to be the preseason. I think that we are going to continue to expect Jalen Reagor to increase his target share in this offense. The matchup is perfect for a full-on Jalen Reagor breakout. So make sure if you have him on your bench, if you're like flipping a coin between Jalen Reagor and possibly someone like T. Higgins, who just lost Joe Burrow, I highly advise you to plug in Jalen Reagor and the upside that he has in this matchup. Now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if y'all did, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. Really, really helps us out. And I hope I'll see y'all in the live stream tonight, tomorrow night, Friday night, Saturday night, Wednesday night, and Sunday night, whenever y'all are. I hope to see y'all there.